Hello and welcome, guys. We are going live again with our cybersecurity Ask Me Anything session. So we're live on YouTube, Twitch stream, as well as TikTok. So, obviously, send any questions, guys, that you have around cybersecurity or technology. We're just gonna cover some of the bits and bobs and talk about some of the questions that you guys might have. I'm going to cover some of the things that obviously that you guys have previously asked me, but then obviously if you want, just ping any questions in the chat, guys, and I'll try to answer any of your cybersecurity technology or any of AI questions that you might have. So I get a lot of questions about career, how to break into cybersecurity, how to, what to study. I think the problem is that half of these questions is very hard to answer because you need to first of all do your own research and you need to do the work to figure it out, guys. What do you want to get out of your career? I think the problem normally you have is that it's hard to prescribe a career if you don't know where you want to go. You need to figure it out what you want to do in your career in cybersecurity. Because just, giving you a prescription into some particular path is impossible to guide you, because in order to give you advice, you figure it out, whether you want to be a SOC analyst, whether you want to be a cybersecurity engineer, whether you want to go into governance, risk and compliance, and so on and so forth. So, half of these questions are very vague most of the time. And, it's hard to give you a prescriptive, whether it's certificate, whether it's skills you want to build, if you don't know what you want to do first of all yourself. So you guys have to figure it out and essentially build yourself or do a bit of a research of what you want to do. Because I always say to people, like, I know penetration testing is a sexy sort of career to have, but it's not necessarily feasible to find entry-level, penetration testing roles. I always say to people, like, look at the numbers game. Now, if you look for, entry-level cybersecurity role, like, chances are that you're going to land a penetration testing role or ethical hacking role is very slim, because these roles in a sort of junior level are very far and in between that you can find any of them. So if you're playing a numbers game, look at LinkedIn now. Out of 100 junior level roles, probably 90 of them are going to be somewhere in SOC. So playing numbers game, go into SOC, and things like that. If you are, trying to figure it out what you want to do as a career, sometimes just getting in is way more important than where you want to go, because as soon as you are into cybersecurity, your world's your oyster, because once you step the foot in, then you can learn and build a career and go wherever you want to go. So figure it out what you want to do, figure it out where you want to be in cybersecurity, not just saying that you want to enter cybersecurity. That's, it's very hard to give someone advice who, don't know themselves what they want. I've been talking, and you've seen probably some of my posts as well, talking about certificates as well. Don't think about certificates as badge collecting. Yes, you can have, plenty of certificates, but that does not necessarily mean that you're going to land a role. Certificates are usually nothing more than, HR filter bypass. It's something that, yes, can help you bypass ATS systems, can help you bypass HR filter, but you need skills. You need to figure it out how to build relevant skills for the role. I always say home lab is the way to go. Nowadays, with virtualization, it's never been easier to build skills. You can get a decent enough laptop, and through virtualization, you can build something like Kali Linux, build a security onion, and so on and so forth. Okay, we have a question. What is your opinion on the combo CCNA and Azure 900 for entry level? Well, I think somebody asked me before about this. Like, if I was you, I would never do CCNA. Well, it depends where you want to go, but CCNA is a more networking directed certificate. So, CCNA is kind of old school Cisco device management certificate. We used to do that back in the day when you used to configure firewalls and things like that. Now, in the world of cloud, where most organizations are moving, CCNA is not necessarily relevant. If you want to do it, yeah, by all means. But, I would say if I would want to do and build networking skills, I would start with CompTIA Network Plus, which is probably easier to cover fundamentals. And I wouldn't jump straight away in Azure 900. Azure 900 is good foundational certificate, but you want to build probably skills that directly within security. So I would do Network Plus and probably Security Plus. And if I want to specialize in cloud security and engineering or stuff like that, then you can go AWS security specialty route. You can go AZ500, or if you want to go in a SOC, I would do Microsoft SC200, because this is specific skills that are going to teach you how to use Defender for Endpoint, Azure Sentinel, and things like that. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing CCNA. AZ900 is a good entry level cert, but again, just collecting certs as a badge, AZ500 AZ900 doesn't do much for you, because just an entry level cloud cert where you can just study anything about cloud and not necessarily do a cert. So I would say, guys, as well, that I kind of touched it earlier. Hey guys, I would say that certs and badge collecting has become such a thing, that people just want to get as many badges on their LinkedIn, but it's more about skills. Once you get 4 or 5 certificates, that's more than you need. I would say specialize. So if you want to do a cloud specific cert, as I say, do AWS security specialty or AZ500. You can even do something like CCSP, which kind of covers broadly cloud. Now, if you want to go work in SOC, do SC200 or something like that. If you want to do work in GRC, then learn something like ISO 27001 lead auditor. If you want to go towards leadership, then you do CISSP. But that's kind of the crux of it. Once you've done 1 or 2 certs in a specific area, then it's more important about actually building the skills than collecting the certificates. So, well, yeah, if cloud security is your goal, then skip the CCNA. Project. I would say, I think I mentioned earlier, maybe you just joined later, but building your home lab is the best project you're going to have, and you're going to learn the most. So using virtualization, stuff like, you can get any laptop, it doesn't even have to be expensive, couple of $100, couple of £100 laptop. And using virtualization, such as, VirtualBox or stuff like that, you can build 3-4 virtual machines. So you can build like an offensive virtual machine using Kali Linux. You can build a defensive one like Security Onion, and then you can build maybe Windows Server or something like that, and you then connect them in a network, and then you can learn. You can learn how to attack using Kali Linux. You can learn Security Onion, how to digest and look at attacks in the logs. Use packet analysis. Learn how to use Wireshark. You can then maybe even use set up Active Directory, learn how to attack Active Directory, learn how to harden Active Directory, learn how to harden the server. There's vast amounts of things you can learn just by building 3 virtual machine network, set up, just a couple of things, and practice. Practice various things, and obviously share this. I guess the key point I always say, yes, you can study, but the sharing the knowledge of and building write-ups, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Medium or stuff like that, where how you building those labs, how you interactive these things, what you kind of doing, it's going to be, the most helpful for you. Not necessarily user enumeration. There are various ways how you can attack Active Directory, but yeah, there are various protocols that you can use. There's various misconfigurations that AD might have. If you just build an out of the box Active Directory, it's going to be misconfigured and it's not going to be secure. So there's number of things you can learn. Yeah, as you say. So if you've got experience with, Kali Linux and things like that, set up a server, write a blog, share, your knowledge. Some projects to build my portfolio to land a job. Well, these are the projects. It's all about sharing and showcasing what you're doing, because the key point I always say, LinkedIn and things like that are the key to you landing a role, because the more you can showcase what you're doing, how you spending time doing personal development, and the more you expand the network, because the goal is, the problem is, like I assume, guys, now what you're facing is you're just applying endlessly to roles and you're getting nothing. To land the roles, you want to get referrals, you want to get hiring managers reaching out to you and giving you the roles instead of you applying endlessly, and that's the way to go. Docker Cube, what your take on it? Docker is, again, it's a great skill. Back in the day I did, so if you want to learn Kubernetes, again, it's a great skill to have in your bag. So back in the day I've done CKA and CKS, so there's Certified Kubernetes Administrator and Certified Kubernetes Security Specialty certs. So again, great skills to learn how to administer Kubernetes cluster, but not only that, CKS is the next level, where it's a really hands-on certificate where you have to complete 20 tasks hardening Kubernetes cluster. So again, you can learn so much. And again, you don't necessarily need to take the cert, but just growing through the curriculum and learning how to, how does Kubernetes work, how to set up networking policies, how to, secure and improve Kubernetes clusters is you're going to learn some great skills in there. So yeah, Kubernetes is definitely, especially when you think about organizations that, building platforms and things like that, they're moving away from using virtual machines and moving into platform as a service, which is Kubernetes. Yeah, always. I'm talking about, not necessarily, you can message the hiring manager as well, but not only that, I would always say, get in contact with companies that you want to work with. So for example, if you want to work for specific companies, get to meet people, ask about what it's like working for that company, make friends, show them how you are developing skills in order to land a role in there. So whenever the role pops up, you are not an unknown person. Then you can ask for internal referral. I don't think Security Plus is 400 euros. I'm pretty sure it's much cheaper. Or at least when I did it back in the day. Well, maybe it's a bit more expensive now, but I don't think it's 400 euros. But as I say, you don't necessarily need to do, all of these exams to get certificate. You can get the knowledge. Hello guys from Nigeria. Certificates is, as I said, certificates is badge collecting. Yes, you need a couple of them, but the most important thing is building skills. It's not about, collecting as many badges as possible and gaining as many certificates as possible. There are other ways to land roles, and skills are the ones that are gonna open you the doors. Yeah, I understand. It's hard when you started out. Yeah, loads of people. Yeah, you are just applying, and the problem is competition, especially at the entry level sort of cybersecurity level is very hard, and there's you'll probably see yourself. There are hundreds of people applying to every single role, and it's hard. And as I said, I landed my first cybersecurity role. I actually landed because I was proactive, and as I said to you guys, I went and did junior conference, and I actually prepared a talk, even though I was pretty, I was spent about 6 months studying and preparing for my role. But I went on a conference, and people were impressed. So when I applied for a role, the hiring manager asked the person who did the conference about my presentation, and that's how I landed the role. What are you learning at the moment? At the moment, so I'm Chief Information Security Officer, so I'm in the leadership. So I do not really do much technical level learning. When I go to the leadership position, I kind of focused learning a lot more about business, around personal development, around time management, for example. How to influence people, how to become a better storyteller, how to get executives to buy into my cybersecurity strategy. So I do various kind of things. Although recently I've been playing along, so I did a lot of building my own AI models and training AI models to understand how AI works in order to be able to secure AI. Best websites to learn cybersecurity. I guess the best websites, I'm a big fan of learning platforms. So try Hack Me, Hack the Box are great websites to learn more about cybersecurity. But in general, any of the news articles, find people who share, great stuff. Yeah, and it's definitely going to conferences to network and meet people. Sometimes I always say, you never know who will open the next door for you. So meeting like-minded people in the cybersecurity industry is the best thing. I've intentionally built. I've got LinkedIn. I've got about 13,000 people in LinkedIn. I've got about 8,000 on my YouTube. But I'm trying to grow and learn from other CISOs, from various other like-minded professionals that I can continuously learn from others. Because when people say you're a security expert, it's nonsense. Nobody's ever a security expert. You're just trying to be better and learn more as much as possible. You don't believe what about Kubernetes? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Christy. Yeah, Troy Hackme is definitely Troy Hackme. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of labs on Troy Hackme, and they have even like some great paths that you can learn. Especially pre-described paths, like I think they got junior path, they got SOC analyst path, they got I think even offensive path. So, and I think Try Hack Me is only like something like $10-12 a month. Well, yeah, but Kubernetes I've done about 3-4 years ago. The only, as I say, the only technical stuff I really did was looking at and exploring more about AI. But just because I wanted to understand, because I am a big proponent, and I think you can't not only necessarily build strategy, but you can't secure or understand technology unless you actually get to touch it and learn it. Which cyber path is best? I don't think there is best path. I think the best one is the one that you love the most. And I always say that there is no best path. It is, you have to find something that you love. And because CISO, CISO is always hard, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't really do technical stuff, because there's so much more involvement in about building strategy, getting business to understand why we need to solve specific risks and things like that. Yeah, I could definitely do a series on pen testing. If you guys can find my YouTube channel on my bio as well. I've done various videos. For example, there's some great videos. For example, I've done how to build a honeypot on AWS. I think one of my most popular videos. There's also my I wrote my master's dissertation about how to build security operations center using att&ck and leveraging threat intelligence. So there is 3 video series where I broke it down how to use att&ck. I've run also Cyber Diaries podcast where I have, I think, 35 episodes currently, so you can find that on my YouTube. There is various other videos because I've done videos about AI. I've done videos about breaking into cybersecurity. You know, I've done an interview with one of my guys who I hired. So, for example, maybe for you, might be one of you guys who want to break into cybersecurity might be relevant. So, one of my guys who I hired, he was an electrician for 16 years, and he got the first cybersecurity role in my company, and I hired him. But I always say to people, like, I hire because of mainly 2 things: someone's attitude and aptitude. Like, I can teach you technical skills, but I can't teach you passion for cybersecurity or attitude towards, or aptitude and willingness to learn. These are the most important skills for someone to have. So yeah, that's what's, you know, gonna separate you from the crowd, because once you have passion, you know, and willingness to learn, you know, nothing's gonna stop you. We got a question on YouTube as well. Looking for SOC tier 1 opportunities. Want to know how AI has been integrated in this role and what. I wouldn't necessarily say AI has been integrated into SOC level 1. I think the problem is now is that AI is more potentially has the way to remove some of the tier 1 SOC level roles, because loads of managed security service providers are leveraging AI, and AI is kind of replacing the tier 1 roles. So I think the bar is getting higher to get into the SOC, and that's where I think some people are really struggling, because the SOC is becoming less and less possibilities to hire sort of low level roles, and then you have to build more skills to enter. You always tell me how business people are. Yeah, I know. Business people always can be a headache, but you know, it's again, it's part of your building your skills, you know, because you need to then be able to influence those business people. You need to be able to explain, you know, one of the key skills that why I always say, like, for example, why teachers are great people who enter cybersecurity, because teachers are innately capable of breaking down a complex technical subject and explaining it to like a 7-year-old. That's a great skill to have. I always say as well, when you're studying and learning, being able to explain any cybersecurity concept to, for example, your mom or your, you know, younger sister who has no clue about cybersecurity is a very important skill to have, because I always say sometimes your ideas might never reach a day of light unless you are able to explain it something to someone who has no clue about that idea. Yeah, as I mentioned previously, you know, it's a great aspiration to be a pen tester, but to be, you know, for beginner pen testing roles is very hard to find. And I always say to people, you can want to be a pen tester, but I will just say find the path of least resistance and find any cybersecurity role. SOC analyst potentially is the cheaper or easier route, and then once you are in the cybersecurity, then walk your way to pivot into pen testing if that's your goal to go to. Because, you know, as for example, you know, NASA says, you know, OSCP, yes, but you can do a OSCP as well, but it's very highly unlikely that you're gonna land the junior level role, even if you've done the OSCP, because, you know, any level of pen testing role will ask you for 1 or 2 years experience, and that's very hard. But, you know, if you end up in a company that, for example, if you work in a SOC for managed security service provider, and the same company provides pen testing services, now you entering the SOC, you can then build skills and trying to pivot into penetration testing. That's so way easier than trying to land the junior pen testing role, because they're very, very far and in between, and it's very hard to get there. So, you know, I would say find an alternative route, find the easier route, or just in, you know, in any technology discipline, because once you're in the cybersecurity field, you can pivot into wherever you want to go. Yeah, exactly, NASA. Yeah, you just get in the SOC, build up your skills, because once you're in a SOC, SOC is a whole layer of sort of defensive cybersecurity where allows you to build skills and learn things. It's a great grounding. I started my career in SOCs back in the day. I was working in the SOCs, then I went to build and architect SOCs and build it for other organizations. As I said, I wrote my master's thesis about how to build SOCs. Then only when I went to engineering and architecture, I'm the kind of person, I think I was very intentional the way I built my cybersecurity career and how I wanted to get into leadership. So I went from SOCs, building and architecting SOCs, then went to cloud security engineering and architecture, then went into DevSecOps and building application security programs for organizations. And then I did a bit of pen testing. My master's was in digital forensics as well, so I kind of tried to cover every discipline within cyber before I go to the leadership. So I'm pretty comfortable, talking about anything. No, NASA, I don't think you need to get bachelors to get into CISO. I think that the one main thing, sometimes, organizations might ask, but that's more a kind of a barrier. I think, the better route if you want to be a CISO is get CISSP, which, you need 5 years of experience in 3 of the, I think, 9 cybersecurity domains. So I've done that back in the days. I've done CISSP and CISM, which are kind of the main certificates if you want to get into leadership. I think nowadays more CISOs are doing MBAs because just to understand how business operates. But again, that's not necessarily, because there's some great books about like CISO evolution and some other stuff that I read that kind of explains, how does business work, how does financing work, because, you need to understand way more than just technology. You work as vulnerability in bank and want to specialize in pen test and be a bug hunter. Advice? Well, I would just say, you just practice and hone in your skills. I'm sure bank has its own penetration testing department, so you internally figure it out the way how you can move and get a role in pen testing. Find out what the guys that work in pen testing department, what skills they build, how they build those skills, what they could advise and how to get there. Because as I say, when you work for bank, it's amazing because you will have all kinds of disciplines within cyber within the bank. So you pivoting internally, it's so much easier than you trying to find the pen testing role somewhere else. No. NASA, it depends. That's what I'm saying. CISP, you only do CISSP once you got 5 years experience. If you've done 5 years in cybersecurity, CISP is easy. I've done. I thought CISSP was very easy. I've done the exam. I think I've done it in like an hour, and I think I passed like 90% or something like that. It's the book name. There's loads of books, but one of them is CISO Evolution. The other one is CISO Compass. There's some great books about CISO sort of career and guidance that explains a lot about CISO career and all the other aspects outside of just technology. Vulnerability assessment and pen test is about to be a real pen test. Well, yeah, as I say, just speak to internal. I'm sure you have in the bank internal red team. So the ideal way is just to move internally into red team. Find out what skills you're lacking, how else you can develop yourself, and what's the entry criteria to move into real pen testing role. But as you say, you already got an advantage because within your title, vulnerability assessment and pen tester, you would the key goal would be to work and tailor your CV to highlight the pen testing part, and vulnerability assessment is the lesser part. I work for public sector on top of my job. I'm cyber champion at work. Of course you can. Anything to do with cyber, especially where you are cyber champion, so you are, potentially volunteering your time of course, think about how you can leverage and how you can showcase that being a cyber champion is a great asset and skill for your future organization. It's always talk about metrics. I always say in cybersecurity, it's important how to highlight your skills. Just saying I've done X, Y, and Z, it's not a great thing, but you saying, I've been security champion, which allowed my organization to improve cybersecurity posture and potentially remove specific risks and things like that. Yeah, no. CSSP was really easy. It depends, as I say. If you've been working just in a SOC and you have no exposure to a lot of cybersecurity things and understand how they want you to think as a cybersecurity leader, yeah, CSSP might be hard, but yeah, it wasn't hard for me, I think. Um, it depends, because as you see, it depends what you do as a cyber champion. Because to do CSSP, you need to have 5 years worth of experience within 3 cyber domains. So you need to have enough experience, because you can do an exam tomorrow, but you're not going to get a certificate. And I always say, don't chase that CSSP badge. You need to only do it once you think you got enough experience, enough credibility, because CSSP is mainly for the leadership positions. Now, if you're looking for a pen tester role, why would you waste money and time to do CSSP? It's pointless. So, CSSP is essentially, yeah, I would say, is a cert that you do if you really want to get into leadership. I think OT experience is always a big bonus, NASA. It just really depends where you're gonna go and work. Anytime you're gonna be working in an organization that has any kind of manufacturing presence, OT is always gonna be a big thing. So, for example, if you go work now in financial services, OT is useless to you. But if you go work, I worked before in Domino's Pizza, so we had loads of manufacturing plants, and OT was an important part of the job. So it really depends. But as I say, if you're really interested in working within manufacturing arena, OT is a great skill to add. But yeah, as I say, it really depends on the industry and where you see yourself going. Because adding skills for the sake of adding them, again, does not really help you in any way. But adding skills that helps you achieve your goals is always good. Any other questions, guys, before I drop off? I'm gonna try and do kind of probably every Tuesday about similar time. I'm trying to run this Ask Me Anything session. So, do your homework. Hopefully I helped you a bit, but come back if you've got any questions. I'm confused. Where can I get a real pen test knowledge? What do you mean a real pen test knowledge? Pen test knowledge is, it's about yeah, you can DM me, guys. I can't promise you to answer all of your questions, but I'll try to help as much as possible. Well, real pen testing knowledge is by practicing. Is build a Kali Linux and figure it out how to attack. Go and try hack me. Learn, do pen testing learning path, and learn how to complete various tasks. Learn how to do, enumeration, how to do network scanning, how to discover vulnerabilities. That's the way to go. And the same projects as I'm talking about, for entry level role. Nana. Build your own home lab. Build Kali Linux on virtualization, security onion. Connect them in a network. Try and attack each machine on a network from Kali Linux and learn how to attack. Learn how these logs look like. Learn how to use Wireshark to analyze and do packet analysis and see how these attacks look like. That's the best things that you can do in order to build and advance those skills. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna have to shoot. But yeah, it was pleasure sharing some ideas, some knowledge. As I say, I'll probably do again same time wherever you guys are. So for me, it's gonna be 6 p.m. BST, British Standard Time, next Tuesday. I'm gonna run one of these sessions again. So bring any of the questions, you know, and I'll hopefully can help you and guide you in your career, in your search, in the next job. And yeah, have a good evening, guys. Here's a scenario for you guys. Entry-level SOC analyst role. Requirements: 5 years SIEM experience, CSSP, master's degree, scripting in 3 languages, and salary 52K. Well, I applied anyway, got the job at 75K, and here's how